Ladies and gentlemen, Asian guy here. I need you to stop what you're doing right now. Something is happening in the financial system that nobody is talking about. And the silence, the deafening silence from the people who should be screaming, is the most terrifying part of this entire story. We just crossed a threshold. The United States national debt has officially breached $36 trillion. That's not a projection. That is the actual number sitting on the Treasury's balance sheet right now, $36 trillion. And here's what should keep you up at night. The people who manage the world's money, the asset giants, the firms that control more wealth than most countries will ever see, are saying absolutely nothing. BlackRock is quiet, Vanguard is quiet, State Street is quiet, the largest pension funds on earth are quiet. And when the gatekeepers of global capital go silent at the exact moment the debt spiral accelerates, that silence is not confusion. That silence is preparation. The entire GDP of China, the second largest economy on the planet, is roughly 18 trillion. The US debt is now double that. We are not talking about a number that exists in the normal spectrum of economic reality. We are talking about a mathematical impossibility that the system has learned to ignore until it can't. Now, let's look at the trajectory. In the year 2000, the national debt was 5.6 trillion. In 2008, it was 10 trillion. By 2020, 27 trillion. Today, 36 trillion. Do you see the acceleration? It took 200 years to reach 5 trillion. It took 8 years to double that. And now we are adding trillions per year like clockwork. The interest payments alone, the cost of servicing this debt, are approaching $1.4 trillion annually. That is more than the entire defense budget. The United States government is now spending more money paying interest on old debt than it spends on the future. And here is where the story turns dark. Because if you are BlackRock, if you're managing $9 trillion in assets, you employ the smartest risk analysts on the planet. You have access to data that governments don't see. You model scenarios that would make the average investor vomit. And those models are telling you something right now. They are telling you that the debt spiral is terminal. They are telling you that the math doesn't work. They are telling you that the only way out is through a controlled demolition or an uncontrolled collapse. And yet, publicly, they say nothing. Why? Because if BlackRock holds a press conference tomorrow and says, "We believe the US debt is unsustainable," what happens? The bond market craters. The dollar collapses. Panic spreads globally. And BlackRock gets blamed for triggering the crisis. So they stay quiet. They don't warn you. They don't sound the alarm. They just quietly reposition their portfolios. They shift out of long duration bonds. They move into hard assets. They buy gold. They buy real estate. They rotate into commodities. And they do it in the dark, hoping you don't notice until it's too late. Let's talk about what happens when a debt spiral reaches the terminal phase. Because we have historical examples. Weimar Germany, Zimbabwe, Venezuela. Every single time the pattern is the same. First, the debt becomes so large that it cannot be repaid through normal economic growth. Second, the government tries to inflate the debt away by printing money. Third, the currency collapses. Fourth, real assets explode in price. We are currently in phase 2. The Federal Reserve has already printed trillions to keep the system alive. They call it quantitative easing. They call it emergency liquidity. But the mechanism is identical to what Zimbabwe did. And the only difference is scale and speed. The asset giants know this. They study sovereign debt crises. They know the playbook. And their silence suggests the timeline is closer than anyone admits. If they thought there was time, they would be buying 30-year treasuries. But they are not. They are selling. Foreign central banks dump treasuries. China liquidates. Japan hedges. Even domestic pension funds are underweight. This creates a doom loop. The government needs to borrow more money to pay the interest on the old debt. But if nobody wants to buy the new debt, the government has to offer higher interest rates to attract buyers. Higher interest rates mean higher interest payments. Higher interest payments mean more borrowing. More borrowing means more debt. More debt means even higher interest rates to compensate for the increased risk. Do you see the spiral? It is a mathematical black hole. And once you cross the event horizon, there is no escape velocity. The data includes catastrophic variables. Debt to GDP crossed 120%. When nations cross this, they enter the danger zone. Interest expense approaches 25% of tax revenue. At 30%, you enter the death spiral. And the political system is paralyzed. No path to austerity. Neither party will cut entitlements or raise taxes enough. The only tool left is the printing press. The asset giants are not just staying quiet. They are preparing. Look at the M&A activity in hard assets. Farmland acquisitions. Gold accumulation by central banks. Mysterious buying in commodities futures. Someone is hoarding. Rotating out of paper into real things. Quietly, methodically, without alarming the public. Now, let's talk about what this means for the average person. Because the debt spiral doesn't just destroy governments. It destroys purchasing power. It destroys savings. If you are holding your wealth in dollars and bonds and fixed income instruments, You are holding a melting ice cube. The government will print the money to pay the debt. The printing will devalue every dollar you own. Your paycheck will stay the same. Your rent will double. Your groceries will triple. And by the time the mainstream media admits there is a problem, the damage will be irreversible. The asset giants know this. They have known this for years. And their silence is not ignorance. Their silence is strategy. They're not going to warn you. They're not going to hold a press conference and say, "Ladies and gentlemen, we recommend you move your retirement funds into hard assets immediately." Because if they did that, the stampede would crash the system before they finished repositioning their own portfolios. So they stay quiet. They buy gold at $3,900 an ounce without telling you why. They accumulate real estate while interest rates are still artificially suppressed. They build positions in energy, agriculture, metals, anything that cannot be printed by a central bank. And they leave you holding the bag. Let's examine the transfer. When the debt spiral reaches terminal phase, government has three options: default and trigger crisis, austerity and accept depression, or inflate and destroy currency. History shows governments choose inflation, always. Default triggers chaos, austerity triggers political suicide, inflation is a slow burn, transfers pain gradually, quietly until too late. And this is where the asset giants come in. Because in an inflationary collapse, wealth doesn't disappear. It transfers. It transfers from those holding paper to those holding real things. It transfers from the middle class to the asset owning class. If you own stocks, real estate, commodities, your nominal wealth explodes. If you own cash, bonds, fixed income, your real wealth evaporates. The asset giants understand this dynamic better than anyone. They are not worried about the debt spiral destroying the economy. They are positioning to profit from it. Here's the terrifying question. If the smartest money is quietly preparing for a currency crisis, why no warning? Simple and brutal. The transfer only works if the masses stay asleep. If everyone woke up tomorrow and converted dollars into gold, the system would collapse instantly. Not enough gold, not enough real estate, not enough physical commodity inventory. So asset giants need you calm, need you believing, need you holding dollars and bonds while they accumulate real assets. By the time you realize what is happening, prices exploded, window closed. Let me give you a concrete example. Look at gold. For years, the mainstream financial media told you gold was a barbarous relic. They told you it was a pet rock. They told you stocks and bonds were the future. Meanwhile, central banks were buying gold at record pace. The largest sovereign wealth funds were accumulating gold quietly through offshore entities. And now, gold is trading near all-time highs. The people who listened to the media missed the move. The people who followed the money made fortunes. This is not an accident. This is strategy. Apply that logic to the debt spiral. Media says the economy is fine. Debt is manageable. No crisis. Meanwhile, asset giants reposition, buy inflation hedges, rotate out of paper. Complete silence. By the time CNBC admits the problem, the wealthy already moved. Middle class trapped. Here's what should keep you up. The 36 trillion is not the ceiling. It's the floor. We hit 40 trillion within years. 50 trillion by decade's end. At some point, the market loses faith. Buyers demand such high rates the government cannot afford to borrow. Then the Fed becomes buyer of last resort. They print money to buy bonds. That is when the currency crisis begins. The asset giants watch this timeline. They model the breaking point. Their silence suggests it's closer than the public realizes. If they thought there was time, they would still buy treasuries, hold cash. But they are not. They are moving, quietly, methodically, without telling you why. Let's talk about the final phase. When the market loses faith in the dollar, when the Fed prints to fund government, consequences cascade, inflation accelerates, savers destroyed, social unrest follows. When people cannot afford food and rent, they demand action. Governments respond with more printing, more desperation. Hyperinflationary feedback loop, each round makes it worse, until currency is worthless. The asset giants survive this, even profit. They own real assets, companies that produce goods, real estate, commodities. When currency collapses, their assets reprice higher. A building worth 10 million becomes 100 million, not because the building changed, because the currency died. Wealth transfer complete, paper holders wiped out, asset holders become new oligarchs. And this is why their silence is damning. They know this is coming. They are preparing, and they say nothing. Warning you would interfere with their strategy. If you sold bonds and bought gold today, that drives up gold prices and reduces their returns. So they need you to wait, hesitate, believe the media. By the time you act, too late. Let me show you the timeline. The debt spiral accelerated after 2008. The financial crisis forced the government to bail out the banks, bail out the auto industry, bail out everyone. The cost was trillions. Then came the pandemic, more trillions. Stimulus checks, unemployment benefits, corporate bailouts. Now we are entering a new phase, Entitlement spending is exploding as the baby boomers retire. Social Security, Medicare, these are not discretionary programs. They are locked in, and the cost is accelerating. Meanwhile, tax revenue is not keeping pace. The government is caught in a vice. Spending is rising faster than revenue. The gap must be filled by borrowing, and borrowing at $36 trillion is already unsustainable. So what happens next? The optimist will tell you the economy will grow. They will tell you productivity gains from AI and technology will boost tax revenue. They will tell you the debt can be managed. But the asset giants are not betting on that scenario. They are betting on the opposite. They are betting that growth stalls, that inflation accelerates, that the debt spiral reaches terminal velocity. And their silence, their complete refusal to publicly acknowledge the problem, tells you everything you need to know about their confidence in the official narrative. The system transfers wealth from uninformed to informed. Asset giants have data you never see. Analysts modeling scenarios you never hear. They move billions in minutes. They position ahead. When buying gold, no announcement. When selling bonds, no warning. They move in silence. By the time you realize, opportunity gone. The scariest part, if asset giants prepare for currency crisis, they prepare for social consequences. Currency collapse destroys trust, leads to extremism. Authoritarianism, capital controls, confiscation. Asset giants diversify geographically. Offshore entities, multiple jurisdictions. Preparing for a world where dollar is not reserve currency, where capital flows are restricted, where wealth is hunted, without telling you. What does this mean for you? You are on your own. Asset giants won't warn, government won't warn, media won't warn until too late. You read the signals yourself. Watch what smart money does, not what they say. Right now, smart money screams one message. Get out of paper. Get into real things. Debt spiral terminal. Timeline shorter than anyone admits. Transfer of wealth already begun. The $36 trillion debt is a countdown. The fuse on a bomb burning for decades. Asset giants not trying to defuse it. They back away from blast radius, quietly, methodically, without telling you to run. By the time explosion happens, they will be safely positioned. You will hold worthless paper, wondering why nobody warned. The silence is the warning. BlackRock not screaming tells everything. They know, they prepare, they say nothing. Transfer only works if you don't see it coming. This is strategy. Wealth moves in crisis from many to few, unprepared to prepared. Right now, system breaking. Math doesn't work. Debt cannot be repaid. Only question is how collapse unfolds. Either way, asset giants ready. Been preparing for years. Their silence is confirmation. Endgame begun. 36 trillion spiral not distant. Happening now. Ask yourself, well, why are they quiet? What do they know? What are they doing with that knowledge? The answer determines whether you survive what comes next or become another casualty of the greatest wealth transfer in human history. Countdown running. Fuse burning. Asset giants already gone.